Michael Harnar, Dr. Michael Harnar. It's spelled M-I-C-H-A-E-L. Last name is H-A-R-N-A-R. And I have a middle initial I use, which is A, so Michael A. Harnar. My title is Senior Associate, Evaluation and Research, Mosaic Network, Inc., Santa Barbara, California.
Thank you so much for your time. Sir, first of all, I would like to know about the different activities undertaken by Mosaic Network back in US.
Mosaic Network in the U.S. does an awful lot of work with multi-site organizations, and we think of those as large social service and human service agencies that serve many of the young and actually the whole lifespan from young into the old in the U.S. And we provide data solutions so that they can manage their data and report on their data. We also provide evaluation services, which helps those programs evaluate what they're doing and how well they're doing it. And so research and evaluation on those programs as well as data solutions for them.
Sir, if you could elaborate a bit on your role in the whole process.
My role is research and evaluation, so I lead an evaluation and research team. So we work with the agencies that use our solutions, or we work with other companies that aren't necessarily using our solutions, but we work with them to help them evaluate their programs. And when I say evaluate, I mean they look at the data and they look to see how well they are accomplishing the goals that they set out to achieve.
So what are some of the programs that are like in process back in the US?
So I'll answer your question. You asked about some of the specific programs that we work with in the U.S. In particular, one of the larger programs we work with is based in California, and the voters in California decided back in the 90s to spend a lot of money on children's first 5 years. And so they set up a commission across the state where they would disperse money, taxes on tobacco, to fund programs to serve the first 5 years of children's lives. So this is considered what we call First 5 California. We provide data solutions for the first 5 agencies throughout the state, and we have, I think, 7 or 8 of those agencies in the state. What we also do for them is we help them do their evaluations of their projects. So that's where I come in. We collect the data from their data solution, we do some analysis of that, and we then give them a report that helps them know whether or not they're serving the needs of the children that they say they're doing. That's one of the many programs that we work with.
Some of the upcoming programs that you are about to conceive there?
One of the projects that I'm just beginning to work on is another one based in California. It is a statewide organization that reaches out and helps to reduce the amount of child abuse that goes on in the state. Believe it or not, we have that in the U.S. And so there's a statewide agency funded at the state level that goes out and works with many agencies throughout the state to develop programs that help families strengthen their more supportive elements of their life so that there's less child abuse. I'm working on a project that will evaluate that program in one of the counties of the state.
So what is it exactly that your solution would help the people know?
Let's see, I'll wait. You think that horn will go off?
That will do something in the editing.
You'll be able to remove it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gone. Yeah. So the work that I'll be doing is looking at whether or not the systems of care where multiple programs are working together to serve the similar families, whether or not those systems of care are actually working well together. And so my data will look at whether or not those systems have grown from what we call silos into what is more of an interactive system of care. And so my evaluation will look at the data and look at their systems and give them a report on whether or not they're doing what they say they are, and hopefully give them the kind of information they need to improve what it is they're doing.
So it seems that you have been intervened into the market where there's a lot of like child abuse is a social concern. So like there are a lot of such social problems going on in India and also abroad. So, what is the kind of acceptability of solutions of this sort back in the US?
An important process throughout the U.S. where they are looking at it now. So programs, there's a large stigma with these types of issues. So because of the stigma, a lot of the support for those kinds of programs lacks real strong support. You can get a large population of people supporting it, and that pushes through legislation. And once the legislation goes through, then there's some money that comes in from the state or from the federal government. And once that money comes through, then that's when a lot of work can get done. So there's a big part of that which is that you have to get the legislation to push to get the money so that then you can do something with it. There's not a lot of private money for it. There are a number of private foundations that are investing in these types of things, but less in the U.S., I would say, than what they do abroad. There's a few of our foundations that spend a lot of money in the U.S. doing these things, but there's an awful lot of them that spend it abroad.
How do you see the market in India? Can you give some idea about being an outsider, some objective view about this country as well? Because Mosaic has its chain here as well.
The view that I can give most about is my early understanding of the education system, and that's where Mosaic spends most of our energy here in India. And my understanding is that there's an opportunity here that, we all know that education is the driver of economic growth and recovery. And so for most countries, if you can get the education and give it a boost and really inject it with some sort of support and an impetus to push forward, you have a greater potential to impact the economic stability and economic future of the country. So for me, I see that that's an opportunity here where the kind of efforts that Mosaic is doing has the potential to really help the nation and in turn help the world, because India really is such a large population and has the potential to have such an impact on the world.
So with the change in government, what is the kind of relation in the education field between India and America?
In education? Or, sorry, say the question again?
The educational initiatives and the relations and the kind of exchange between India and the US.
I'm not familiar with it. I know that at our level, at the initiative level and at the company level, there are a number of American companies who are working in India, and then there's a number of American companies who have established a very firm presence in India. So at that level, I understand that there's an awful lot of work going on. But at the national level and, say, the Department of Education, I don't have a sense of that.
So, sir, you have been doing a lot of things apart from the social initiatives that are the solutions that have been provided to the different NGOs and so on. So, what is some kind of work is also being done by Mosaic in the language part. So you have a lot of English language projects. So can you elaborate on that as well, sir?
One of the biggest pieces that we see can support the real economic growth is looking at the employability of the young workforce. And with English being such a large, such an international language, and quite often the language of work in many different countries, we see that English is a real possibility where we can make an impact. And so I look quite a bit at how English is being taught to speakers of other language. And we look at how that is being done, and we're working on that here in India. We have an initiative and a solution, or I should say an initiative, that is designed to support people at home on their computers and with some support to really learn English language but a functional English, an English that they can use in an everyday world to interact in business, both at at the base level of just the most basic type of interaction, all the way up to more management level interaction.
So, are you working on some kind of a English language project in, like right now, some kind of a solution or a language course that, some kind of a program that is interesting and you might like to share about?
Yes, right now we're looking at the different levels of English need, and we're validating a particular curriculum that we've built, and we're looking at how well people sit through the courses and test based on the curriculum, and then how well they do after that. And so we're looking at some validation numbers on a curriculum for English, and I would call it functional English, and an employability type English, the base level English for people to use in the workforce. And that's the one I'm most proud of right now, because I think it has the potential to have such a large impact on the working population of India.
So what exactly is employability type English?
Well, I think really employability type is more of, I would call it functional English. And if you think about what it's like to, in the workforce of a service industry, for instance, you don't necessarily know how to read Hemingway, but you do need to have a conversation that talks about the basics of life. Where do I go to have my shirt cleaned? Would you like it pressed? Where can I go to get my oil changed? The kind of basic work that you might, the basic language of everyday life. That's what I consider an employability skill. If you have that particular type of English and you can function and put together sentences that make sense and get your point across and understand the responses from people, then that's the basic employability. I would call it functional English with an employability perspective.
Who should go for these kind of courses? Like British Council also has some kind of courses like primary and intermediate level courses that are taken by students here who wants to go for a corporate career.
Mm-hmm.
So would you elaborate on the kind of people who should actually opt for these courses? And many people actually don't know about these courses.
Mm-hmm.
So how can they improve to increase the chances of employability and not just placeability right after the completion of their
Mm-hmm.
technical courses?
Mm-hmm. Well, we find that a lot of people that are moving through the education system, they've studied English, but it doesn't mean that they can go out and use it in their daily existence. So this is the kind of opportunity you would have to go and study this, either further along in your secondary schooling, where maybe your English really wasn't practiced and you didn't study as hard as you might want to. And you go out into the workforce and you find that you don't have the basics to be able to communicate. And so then I would say that they should look for a course like this. And then there's also the people who have maybe gotten through school years ago and have the lateral movement type of people who are in a particular job skill that they feel like they are bored with, or it's enough, or they want to try to change and move on to something else. That employability English, or that functional English, could be really helpful for them to move laterally from one job to the next.
So what are the challenges in developing solutions?
None. No, just kidding. Well, I think the biggest challenge is really getting it, like you say, getting it actually known about, and getting the word out, and introducing it to people, and for them to see the value in it. Once we get it in front of them, most people see the value in this. But it's really about getting it in front of people and getting them to understand its value, so that we can then build it and bring it into their. Let me answer that. Let me try that answer again, because it really didn't make any sense. So I think the biggest challenge we have really is getting enough people to know about what it is we're doing. As a relatively small company, you don't have immediate access to the market, and it's really all about time and effort and advertisement and meetings and conversations and outreach efforts. So that's probably the biggest challenge, is the outreach effort to really get it into people's hands so that they see the value of it.
Uh, Back in the US, as whatever we get to read here, we feel that there's a lot of IT intervention in it, and people are really motivated to use IT,
Mm-hmm.
and they are always after data. Everything is like, whenever you read an article, it is supported by a lot of data. So there is some kind of awareness there.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it like working in that kind of a market?
Well, the great thing about it is that because they know that you need data to establish your product and your intervention and your argument for causation, then they know that you're always looking for data. So it does make it a little bit easier to partner with universities and schools to say, could I pilot this particular solution with you so that we could get some data and really test it and whether or not it works? So it's almost, I wouldn't say it's a chicken and egg thing, but I would say that because the awareness is there that data is so important, that developing systems and testing them and piloting them is quite, I wouldn't say easy, but it's a little bit easier than it might be here, where people want you to do something first and then prove that it works. From a scientific perspective, it's really, really important to do something in a pilot phase and test it and get that, that data that supports your argument, so that you can then go back to somebody and say, hey, look, see, we've already got this and it works. So in India, I see that we have to do that. We have to get that data first, and then they'll let us bring it in. Where in the US, there's a lot more willingness to allow us to test it with you and work on it and then improve it and then bring it out to the market that way.
In the US, you also have a lot of PhDs like available who can work with you, team up well.
Mm-hmm.
In India, so much of doctorates are not produced as it should be. That is one of the biggest complaints when you go to different higher education institutes.
Mm-hmm.
So is that one of the challenges, that the trust factor is not there?
Maybe, and I don't think that PhD is the only, research is research, and there are people who are well-trained in research that have not obtained a PhD. I'm sure that we could partner with people who have a master's degree or people who are working in higher education who understand the research piece. But I'm relatively new to that here in India, so I don't have quite a sense of who and what and where to make those connections.
I will just rephrase my question once again. I wanted to know, basically, do you really need a doctorate to understand data? Because a good, like, you are there to monitor the whole team, but here, so like in the coming years, when there is really a lot of such solutions, the need to accept these kind of solutions and bring in such kind of a thing in India, we won't have so much of PhD people coming in, because right now not many people actually opt for PhDs here. So how important is it to have a good degree to understand data, to understand what the person in front of you needs, and to analyze everything and give a proper solution?
I do think that a big piece of a PhD is in how people respond to the idea that you have one. So because I have a PhD, I am often thought to be the only one that can understand data. But it's not true. With a little bit of study, and you do a little statistics study, math study, you can understand data. And it's really all about asking the right questions. And you don't need a PhD to ask the right questions. You just need to think about the problem and work on it and collect the data and do the analysis. So I don't think that a PhD is necessary. Certainly I love having one because I worked very hard at it. But I don't think that it's the only thing. I think the biggest piece is actually getting people on the other side of the table to respect the fact that you understand your data with or without a PhD.
So, because you are an expert in this field, so why did you think of such a, out-of-the-way career, like building solutions? Any mission behind it? Any motivation, anything that inspired you to take this up as a career?
I think that at the core of it, when I was first introduced to the idea of managing data, I was very intrigued by how much power there is in data. And so from that, I developed a natural desire to manage my data well. And so from learning how to manage my data, I ended up designing my own databases because I wanted to manage my own data. And so that turned right into an experience and a skill set that was relatively unusual. And so from that, I met the people of Mosaic, and I was in the middle of studying for my PhD, and I understood databases and I understood what they were doing. And what they're doing with social and educational programs is exactly why I entered the field of evaluation. My PhD is in evaluation and research methods. And so being able to apply my experiences with building databases with a company that is doing good work on social and educational programs was exactly what drew me to Mosaic.
So what is the vision forward about the scene?
For Mosaic India, Mosaic US.
Mosaic US.
Mosaic US is doing very good at what they do, which is serving the needs of social and educational programs throughout the country. One of the things that I see them being able to do better and more of is actual evaluation work that is independent of the data system or the data solution that is in place. And so my vision and the vision of the president of Mosaic is to move them into a parallel job field, which is they're doing data systems and they're doing evaluation. And often they will intertwine, where we'll do evaluations using the data systems, or we'll do evaluations without the data systems, and we'll go in and we'll use the data that exists at that program level. But we really want to bring Mosaic Network US up to a position where they're seen as a research, evaluation, and data systems organization, rather than just a data systems organization that also does evaluation and research. Because really, evaluation and research is where the impact is. Because if you can really help programs do well at what they say they're doing, that's where the impact is. That's where they touch the lives of the people on the ground. And for me, that's where I see Mosaic Network US going.
So, apart from the social activities centers and also the educational field, do you see Mosaic in some other segment as well apart from those two?
Not really. I see that social and educational programs are, for us, the real heart of it. Those are the ones that really touch the lives of individuals and really have an impact on society. And that's really what we're in the business of doing, is really helping and making an impact on the world.
So how do you see IT intervention in the healthcare sector?
Well, the healthcare sector is going through a very challenging time right now, in the US especially, for sure, with the whole advent of electronic medical records. There's an awful lot of movement on security and data system management and data management and data system security that you know, it isn't something that we've ever wanted to get into for a lot of reasons. One of them, from my perspective, is that because this security is evolving at such a rapid pace, that it takes a real hardcore technology team to do that. And that means that we move further away from our desire to really work with the programs and actually work with the people on the ground doing the intervention. And so I think we'd spend an awful lot more time just being a technology firm if we were involved in health IT than if we are where we are right now, which is in more social and educational programs. So for me, it's the choice of where we want to place our effort. And I'd rather place my effort on helping the programs really do well at what they're doing, rather than investing in a whole lot of energy into the technology and the IT part of it.